Hi friends, it is the beginning of January, so that means just like just about every other content creator, I'm about to give you my wish list of things that I am looking forward to hopefully happening in WWE in 2025. Very first and foremost, Daddy Dom needs gold, okay? We have been waiting for this for a really long time. I think personally, this is not a lot of people's wish list for 2025, but it's something that I am super, super, super looking forward to. I have faith that this is going to be the year that we get Daddy Dom with a main roster title. I did love his run in NXT, but I want to see him with some main roster gold. My kind of thought process is probably the IC title, taking that from Braun, which I would love to see personally. I've had that as possibly one of my Mania matches. Dom takes the title off Braun. So, would love to see that happen, but I definitely think that, there's a really good chance that we see Daddy Dom go face this year, go babyface. I think that is kind of split between people. I would love to see him go babyface. I think it would be really fun. I also think that there are a lot of more people that are behind him and rooting for him now than there was maybe a year ago. So I would love to see him go babyface, but regardless, I would love to see him get some gold around his waist in 2025. And I think he absolutely deserves it. He is probably the biggest star in WWE right now, maybe besides like Roman, and I guess Cena this year. But he's just a huge star all the time, and I would love to see him get some gold this year. Number 2, kind of going off of that, I do want Liv Dom to stay together. I am going to be really, really sad if they split them up. But I would love to see Liv have some new feuds this year. I think we're all pretty sure that Liv Rhea is probably ending in, at this point, just about a day and a half, 2 days at Raw on Netflix, January 6th. So going off of that, I don't know which one of them is going to come out with the title. Of course, me personally, I'm a little biased. I hope it's Liv. I feel like it's going to be Rhea. We'll see what happens. I would love to see Liv have some new feuds after this. It has been a really long year. Longer than that, I've lost track of time of just her and Rhea. And, one of the things that I was a little upset about during Liv's title reign was that we didn't get really any other feuds. Like, she had a couple matches here and there with like Zelina and Io, obviously. But there were no real feuds outside of Rhea, even when Rhea wasn't there, which was a little frustrating. So I would love to see Liv have some more feuds this year. I do think Io would be a great contender for that. I think Lyra could be a really interesting competitor for her because, one, I know a lot of people think that Lyra may be turning heel, or maybe that's just Johnny, and I feel like a lot of people think that. But Lyra could be really fun, especially if Liv does stay heel. Lyra's a babyface, but it could be a really good opportunity for Liv to kind of show off her in-ring skills because Lyra's a great wrestler in the ring. I know a lot of people are talking about Becky. Liv Becky is one of my pretty strong options for Liv for WrestleMania this year, and feel like we're all pretty sure Becky's probably coming back January 6th on Raw, which is super exciting. So would love to see, Liv and Becky, I think would be a really great feud. I think if at some point they want to go back to Dom and Ray, I feel like every single WrestleMania they kind of bring Ray and Dom back together to do a Mania match. I'm kind of hoping we don't do that this year, only because I would like to see Dom do something else. Like I said, maybe get some gold, face Braun, or even face Finn. Do Dom versus Finn when they finally have that turn. I'm assuming that's coming quicker and quicker with each week. So would love to see Dom do something else at Mania. But if they aren't going to do that and they're going to stick with Dom and Ray for Mania, we could do Liv Zelina. We got a little bit of a taste of that. I loved the promo that Zelina did with Dom and Liv. Thought it was so funny. Zelina is so good on the mic, and she's great in the ring. So I would love to see a Liv Zelina feud. I think it would be really, really fun. I even had the thought of maybe Tiffany. I don't know if, I know a lot of people are thinking that Rhea may be going to SmackDown with the title. So maybe they're doing a little switch there with Tiffany coming to Raw. I think Liv and Tiffany could be really fun. We've already kind of planted the seeds there with her, Dirty Dom remark and a little comment about that. I know people are still talking about that to this day of like, would Dom choose Tiffany over Liv? So I think Liv Tiffany could be really fun. And then going off of that into my third point of this video is I want to see more strong women's feuds that are not title related. I think that's something that's kind of lacking across the industry, but I wanted to talk about it in a WWE context. I know that WWE has been better at putting, people like Michin on the card, and it's not necessarily a title storyline sometimes. I mean, obviously currently it is because she was in the tournament. But I would love to see more actual like storylines and feuds that aren't based around the title. There are so many women in this company that could be put on TV, and I know that that's something that they had mentioned they're going to use SmackDown's extra hour for, is kind of putting more of those people you don't see on TV. I know Blair Davenport is one of those people. So I'm super excited and I'm hopeful to see that, but I think what we really need out of the women's division is, we picked up the women's tag division a little bit this year. I do think that's kind of fallen back a little bit. But we picked that up this year. We picked up the women's division, I think, as a whole a little bit this year. I would love to see now just kind of flushing that out even more with deeper, more depth, more feuds going on. And I do think that there could be some NXT call-ups that would be coming this year, which I'm going to talk about later in this video. But would love to see some more in-depth feuds going on. Like I've mentioned, Lyra and Zelina already. Those are two people who could be involved in some of those feuds. We also recently had BFAB and Elektra Lopez kind of going at it because their factions are kind of going at it. That could be another feud that we could do and get those women actually involved in wrestling would be great. Cross and Scarlett, I think it would be great to see more of them in a ring, actually facing each other and wrestling. We don't really see Scarlett wrestle much at all. And since Nikki's been back in the Wyatt Six has kind of been doing a lot of this, some highs and lows. So I'd love to see them stick with the Wyatt Six a little bit more now that Raw's going back to 3 hours, and maybe we see a little bit of like Nikki and Scarlett while kind of working in that feud. We could also see people like Bailey and Io, Maxine. We could see Ivy Nile, Michin, as I mentioned earlier. All of these people who don't need to be in a title picture in order to have feuds going on. We also have the potential for some people to be returning this year. Carmella, possibly. I believe she said recently that she is nearing a return. So that could be really fun. Alexa Bliss, I would hope, is coming back at some point this year too. So definitely some big possibilities there. I'd love to see some feuds there. Number 4 is going to be a stronger men's tag division. I feel like kind of the women's tag division kind of went like this, and I feel like the men's kind of did too, but I feel like it's weirdly in a lull. I feel like it popped back up a little bit when Motor City Machine Guns came in, but now I feel like it's in a bit of a weird spot. I do love the Judgment Day, but I do think the Judgment Day having the men's titles on Raw was a little rough, but I also am not a big fan of the War Raiders either. So that is really rough on Raw. So one of the things that I was thinking about is maybe, are we moving the Street Profits to Raw? There are a lot of men's tag teams on Raw outside of the War Raiders and the Judgment Day. There's LWO. We could move the Street Profits there. We do have American Made. We have the Alpha Academy. We have the Wyatt Six. They could be involved in tag team wrestling. Final Testament could be involved in tag wrestling. They have, what is it, AOP? I think. I forget what it stands for. But we could have AOP involved. New Day. They kind of have a story going on, but they could be involved in tag team wrestling, and they're heels now, which would be, very different from what we normally see from them. But we have all of these teams on Raw, and we're not really doing much with the Raw's men's tag team title. So I would love to see maybe we get some transfers going on. I think American Made people have been talking about maybe moving to SmackDown, which is fine. But so maybe moving the Street Profits over or something into Raw and kind of like working that division up again. Number 5 is longer feuds for Cody. This is something that's been kind of bugging me a little bit during Cody's reign, and I talked about this in my last I Said What I Said, but Cody has had some really good matches, especially pay-per-view matches. He has really had some good bangers, and I love that. But I would love to see some more, I don't even know what the word is I'm looking for, but I would love to see some more like substantial, longer term feuds for Cody in 2025. I mean, like I said, I love a banger. I love a good match, but it just seems like we're bouncing from one thing to another. We're kind of hot potatoing his feuds a little bit. I mean, right now we're doing the Kevin Owen thing, but it feels like, I don't know why I'm not in love with that right now, and it's also kind of the first one. He's had the title since Mania in April, and this is really the first, like, kind of long-term feud that he's had since getting the title, so I would love to see more of that in 2025. Maybe Randy. That's kind of my dream feud. That's my dream match is Cody versus Randy. Now, I did want to heel Cody for that match, which I do not think I'm going to get. But still, either way, I would love to have Cody Randy. I do think we get Cody Cena. I don't know how much of a feud necessarily that's going to be. I feel like it's going to be a more like face of the company respects the new face of the company handshake kind of thing, which is also cool. That's fine. But I would love to see some longer term feuds this year for him, maybe away from the bloodline. Maybe let's just be done with that. I think Randy's a really good choice for that, just to start off. Number 6 is kind of a small random thing that like it popped up a long time ago when they were kind of interacting in backstage segments, and then they kind of just dropped it. But Tiffany and Pretty Deadly are like a really cool little mix. We don't see like a lot of mixed factions where like the woman is kind of running it, kind of similar to like Rhea with Judgment Day. And I would love to see Tiffany kind of like have her little groupies as like Pretty Deadly and kind of, handling things for her. I think could be really fun. So just like a little thing for number 6, but I would love to see those 3 kind of pair up together. Number 7 is going back to what I mentioned earlier, talking about some NXT moves to the main roster. There are a lot of good talents right now in NXT, but there's a few that I think are ready for that main roster. First and foremost, hear me out. Okay, hear me out. I'm not just biased. The family, okay? Listen. Tony D'Angelo has done most of what can be done in NXT at this point, and I do think that he has improved a lot in 2024 and has really kind of come into his own. I would love to see him make a move to the main roster. Obviously, I'm not necessarily sure the rest of the faction is ready, but I would like to see them maybe kind of doing double shows. If you put, Tony maybe on SmackDown, I think you could have, Luca and Stax and Rizzo kind of doing NXT, but then backing him up on SmackDown when needed, which I think could be really fun. But I would love to see Tony D'Angelo kind of take that next step onto the main roster. Fraxium is another one. They're funny. They're chill. They're not like my personal favorite, but I have definitely come around to them a lot this year. So I think they're super ready to be called up to the main roster, and I think that could be huge. Going back to when I was talking about the men's tag team division, I think they could be a huge kind of jump starter for that division for 2025. So would love to see them pop up. I think them versus like Motor City Machine Guns could be a super fun match. Roxanne and Cora, I think these two are self-explanatory. I think it's actually almost more surprising that they haven't been called up yet already. I mean, I know Cora's been hurt a lot in the last like year or two, but Roxanne is beyond ready to be on the main roster, and I think Cora is right there with her. So I would love to see them kind of get called up to the main roster maybe this year. I know they're moving a lot of like the big name talent to Raw, but I do think that the Raw's women division probably needs a little bit more than SmackDown, at least the way that it's looking right now. I think SmackDown's division just has a little more depth to it than Raw's, but depending on what we do with some changes, if Rhea goes to SmackDown or whatever, that could obviously change. But would definitely love to see them get called up. There's like a million dream matches that we could have, whether they come up as a team or individual wrestlers. I think they could be so good on the main roster. I think they're so ready. Speaking of women that are ready, I think Lash and Jakara would be really cool to get called up. I don't know if they're waiting for them to come up as like Metaphor, like all 4 at once. But I think if they did wait that long, I don't know what Oro's doing right now. I know Noam Dar was hurt, but I think it would be a disservice to them not to bring them up to the main roster this year if the other 2 are not ready or are hurt or whatever else. I mean, we got a little bit of a taste of that with the women's tag title feud that they had, and we had some really cool moments with Bianca and Jade especially, and Lash and Jakara. So I would love to see them come up to the main roster. I think they're super ready. I think Lash especially is a badass, and I would love to see them come up and kind of, I think they could, reinvigorate the women's tag team division as well this year. And my last one, I kind of debated on this a little bit, but I said Trick Williams. And the only reason that I debated on it is because he is literally like the entire heart and soul of NXT. And I was like, I don't know if they're going to want to get rid of him or like move him up without having kind of the next person. So I don't think that they have necessarily the next like guy yet in NXT, which I feel like is probably why Trick is still there. But also to be fair, they moved up Carmelo when he was the guy, and he's kind of been like mid card at best since then, as far as like booking is concerned. So maybe you don't want to move Trick up yet. But I would love to see Trick come up sometime this year. I think he could have some great like mid-card feuds. I don't know if he'd necessarily be going for like world titles or anything just yet, but something like United States champion or whatever just to start in 2025. I think would be really great for him. I think they would just need to figure out kind of who their next guy is in NXT, and it would obviously have to be some baby face that they could kind of run with. Obafemi would be a good pick, but he is a heel currently. I think you could make him a baby face pretty easily though. Maybe Tony D'Angelo. I have no fucking idea. Javon Evans is good, but Javon is young and he hasn't been there very long yet, so I don't know if they're gonna do it with Javon. But definitely some options. I think they just need to kind of figure out who would take his place in NXT, and then I think as soon as they do that, they're moving Trick up to the main roster. Number 8 on my wish list really has more to do with like, I guess, creative and like writing and booking more so than anyone individually. I think what I'd really like to see out of 2025 is digging deeper into more intricate and complicated stories. I've talked a little bit in other videos about the kind of holes in the story with the bloodline, and then some missing pieces with Rhea, Liv, and Dom, where Terra Twins were supposed to be the heels, and we kind of just like pretended that they did nothing wrong because they were baby faces, instead of like acknowledging like, yeah, these are all of the things that like Rhea and Damian did to Liv and Dom and Finn, and kind of making the heels more justified, which I think would have added a lot to this feud if they were actually willing to do that. And then holes in the bloodline story with like, Jay and Sammy are like, Roman, we're not going to help you unless you do this. And Roman's like, no. And they're like, okay, we're going to help you anyway. Things like that, I think are big, like red flags to me. It's like the flashing neon light. So I would love to see more depth in storylines like that, and more like getting more, more intimate with like these wrestlers and their characters, and adding more layers to the stories. I think it builds a lot as a viewer kind of watching. And personally, I don't know if it's just me, but personally, I love the craziness. I love the chaos. I love when it's complicated. I think that makes for some of the best stories. I mean, when you're looking at, they're kind of doing it right now where you have like Drew and KO and Cody and that whole thing. You don't know what's going on with Randy. And then you look at, Seth and Punk, technically both baby faces, but Seth's a little heelish sometimes and Punk's a little heelish sometimes. And then you got to worry about Punk with Roman and Heyman and how that all works, and complicated things like that cut really deep and have like those complicated details, I think are huge for storylines, and I think other companies are doing it, so I would love to see WWE really kind of dive into that going into this year. Number 9 isn't necessarily a wish list, it's more of like when this happens, this is what I'm hoping for. Jordan Grace debuting. I know a lot of people are thinking the Rumble. I would love to see her pop up at the Rumble. There are so many dream matches for her when she gets there. I don't know if they're going to keep her on NXT or move her to the main roster. My thought process would be keep her on NXT at least for a little bit, just because she already has, some roots there, and then move her to the main roster later. But even keeping her on NXT, I mean, Julia, Stephanie Veker, Zarya, Sol Ruka, I think is somebody who's popped up a lot lately. She could be really fun to have matches with. She already wrestled Roxanne. But I mean, I would take another match between the two of them, because that was such a good match. Lash Legend, like I mentioned, she'd be really fun. So would love to see that. And then, moving her into the main roster. I don't think she'd be on NXT for too long. I'd say maybe a year max would be my guess, if that. But I think then moving her into the main roster, I mean, the possibilities are completely unlimited. We have Jade, we have Bianca, we have Nia Jax, you have, Michin, you have Bayley, you have Io, plenty of people for her to have some bangers with. So super looking forward to Jordan Grace debut this year. I'm hoping we see her at the Rumble, just because I think it would be cool to maybe get her in line for a Mania match in her first year. Might be fun. But yeah, definitely looking forward to that. And finally, going off of NXT yet again for my 10th thing on my wish list, I want to talk about some pushes in NXT. So I have now been watching NXT for about a year and a half, pretty consistently, and I think they definitely have some really good talent. But I think we're in that time frame, and I kind of talked about this with Trick, where like I think NXT needs to readjust a little bit and kind of start really pushing up some of those new people. I think they're doing it pretty well with the women's division, but I think you also need to do it with the men's division and the tag divisions. The family is the first one that I was thinking of. I know I mentioned maybe Tony D'Angelo moving to the main roster at least part-time. But I would love to see them do a little bit more with Stax and Luca as a tag team, and then maybe Rizzo as well. We had that little thing with Nikita, and she had the story with Oba that she kind of got involved in, and I thought she did really, really well on both of those. So I would love to see her get a little bit more of a push this year, and then also, Luca and Stax in maybe the tag division or something, or Stax going for one of the North American title or something like that. But I'd love to see them get a really good push. I think Tony did super well this year, and I think they've been great kind of backing him up. But I would love to see them kind of step into the spotlight and see what we can do with them there. Eddie Thorpe is another one. I am in the maybe less than 1% of people that would love to see Eddie Thorpe win the title off Trick. I don't know why. I just think it's so funny that he is in this, and I love the way that they put him kind of in this story, with him faking the attack or whatever, and then just that moment of him with Ava was, I think, it was one of the only moments that I have seen him where like it just made sense. It just kind of clicked a little bit, and I was like, "Oh, he's good. He's good." And we need more of that. I didn't love him before that in the ring with Trick. I think we definitely need to like give him a solid character to kind of work on, but that moment with Ava in her office when he was like, "Oh no, I know who it is. It was me. I wanted my title shot." Whatever the fuck he said. I would love to see more of that kind of character coming out. Maybe someone more, kind of evil, manipulative, a Draco Malfoy type of thing, right? So I'd love to see more of that and maybe give him a bit of a push going into 2025. Gigi, Tatum, and Shotzi is another one. I really like them as a group. I would love to see them maybe individually as well, sometime this year, but I would love to see pushes for all of them. Shotzi has never really, in my opinion, or to my knowledge, been given a really solid spot and like character or like story or anything like that. So I'd love to see them kind of dig more into Shotzi and giving her like a real shot at something this year. Gigi I like, but Gigi has obviously been hurt a lot. So I think them as a group is really, really fun, especially because NXT does have a lot of factions. So I would definitely love to see them kind of continue to grow in 2025, and then maybe by the end of the year kind of split off and go for their own titles or stories, whatever it might be. Javon Evans, I mentioned him earlier. I think Javon is going to be like, it's hard because I think there's a really good chance that he is like the next guy. He's the next face of NXT, but he's still so new that like you can't have him like beat Trick and throw the title at him so quickly. But I'm very excited to see what they do with him in 2025. I do think there is a chance that by the end of the year, he has gold, if not the world title. I would say definitely the North American title. But I definitely look forward to a lot of really cool things in 2025 for Javon. The last few are just a few women that I think are like kind of slowly getting there, but I would love to see get pushed a little more. So Ruka being the first one. She's been given a few spots, this year. She definitely has seen a lot of praise for some of her moves in her matches, and she's doing really well. So I would love to see her maybe, go for a title of some sort, and kind of keep giving her some build this year, maybe get some title on her. I think would be fun. Ren Sinclair is another one. I'd love to see her get pushed. I think her character work in No Quarter Catch Crew has been so fun to watch, so amazing. I have really, really liked her. So I'd love to see her kind of get pushed out of that boundary a little bit, and go for a storyline of her own or like a feud of her own or whatever it might be, and see her get kind of pushed out of that boundary a little bit. And then finally, Brindley Reese. I think she's really cool. I don't love that they had her as like, her character came off to me originally as like very similar to Thea Hale, very energetic, very like happy-go-lucky kind of thing. I'd like to see them move her away from that and kind of give her something more original, or at least not something that's like already kind of being done in NXT. So giving her something a little bit different, and kind of rolling with that. And I'd love to see, kind of what she could do with that in 2025 too. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching my WWE wish list for 2025. I'm going to add just a few more bullet points to this of things that I'd like to see on my Instagram account under my exclusive content that you could sign up for. So my account is just Marissa DeLuco, same as it is on YouTube here. So make sure that you go and check that out. And thank you for watching.